A billionaire was deep into a $1 million meeting when a little girl walked into the skyscraper alone and asked to see the CEO. She brought desperation, and it changed everything. The lobby of Sterling Heights Tower was made of glass and marble, the kind of place where every footstep echoed like a warning. Men in sharp suits moved past the reception desk without looking back, their phones pressed to their ears, their words clipped and measured. On the 42nd floor, inside a corner office with floor-to-ceiling windows, Ethan Cross sat at the head of a long conference table. His voice was calm, deliberate, as he outlined quarterly projections to a room full of vice presidents. Numbers filled the screen behind him. No one interrupted. No one looked away. Then the door opened. A small figure stepped inside, and the entire room fell silent. She was maybe 7 years old, wearing a faded pink jacket and scuffed sneakers. Her backpack hung crooked on one shoulder. She stood in the doorway, her hands folded in front of her, her face pale but steady. Security moved toward her immediately, but she spoke before they reached her. "I'm sorry to interrupt," she said quietly. "My mom's sick, so I came instead." Her voice didn't waver, she didn't cry, she just stood there looking straight ahead and waited. Ethan raised a hand, stopping the guard mid-step. He set his pen down slowly, his eyes fixed on the girl. "What's your name?" he asked. "Emma," she said. "Emma Lawson." The name hit him like cold water. He stared at her for a long moment, then glanced at the executives around the table. "Give us the room," he said. No one questioned it. They filed out in silence, the door clicking shut behind them. Emma didn't move. She stood in the same spot, her hands still folded, her breathing steady. Ethan walked around the desk and crouched down so he was at her level. "Where's your mom, Emma?" he asked gently. "She's at home," Emma said. "She has a fever and she couldn't get out of bed, but she told me this was important. She said you helped us once, a long time ago, and she didn't want to ask again, but we don't have anywhere else to go." Her voice was calm, factual, like she was reciting directions. Ethan's chest tightened. He remembered now. Years ago, before the mergers and the board meetings, before the fortune had grown beyond measure, he had been different, smaller, closer to the ground. He had met a woman named Claire Lawson at a community center fundraiser. She had been a single mother, working 2 jobs, trying to keep her daughter fed and in school. He had written a check that night enough to cover 3 months of rent. He had told her it wasn't a loan. He had told her to take care of her kid, and then he had forgotten. "What does your mom need?" Ethan asked quietly. Emma reached into her backpack and pulled out a folded piece of paper. Her hands were small and careful as she handed it to him. It was a notice from the landlord, eviction, 30 days, past due balance circled in red ink. Ethan read it twice, his jaw tightening. "She didn't want to bother you," Emma said, "but she said you were kind once and maybe you'd remember us." She paused, then added, "I told her I could come. I know how to take the bus." Ethan looked at her, this little girl who had traveled across the city alone, who had walked into a building full of strangers and asked for help without fear, without shame. He folded the paper carefully and slipped it into his jacket pocket. "You did good, Emma," he said. "Your mom's lucky to have you." He stood and walked to his desk, pulling out his phone. He made 2 calls. The first was to his assistant. "Cancel my afternoon," he said. "Something came up." The second was to his lawyer. "I need you to handle something for me quietly. I'll send you the details." Then he turned back to Emma. "Come on," he said. "Let's get you home." She followed him without question, her small hand reaching for his as they walked toward the elevator. The building felt different now, less cold, less distant. Ethan realized he hadn't felt this kind of clarity in years. They drove in silence. Emma sat in the back seat, her legs swinging slightly above the floor. She didn't ask where they were going. She didn't ask what would happen next. She just trusted. When they pulled up in front of a narrow apartment building on the east side, Ethan helped her out and walked her to the door. Claire Lawson opened it before they knocked. She looked exhausted, her hair pulled back in a loose ponytail, dark circles under her eyes. When she saw Ethan, her face went pale. "Emma," she whispered, "what did you—" "She came to see me," Ethan said gently, "and I'm glad she did." Claire's eyes filled with tears, but she didn't let them fall. "I didn't want to ask again," she said. "I know you've already done so much." Ethan shook his head. "You're not asking, I'm offering." He pulled the eviction notice from his pocket and tore it in half. "This is taken care of. Rent's paid through the end of the year, and if you need more time after that, you call me." Claire covered her mouth with her hand, her shoulders shaking. Emma stood beside her, quiet and still, her small hand resting on her mother's arm. Ethan knelt down one more time, meeting Emma's eyes. "You're brave," he said. "Don't ever forget that." She nodded, her expression serious. "Thank you," she said, "for helping my mom." He smiled, a real smile, the kind he hadn't worn in a long time. "Thank you," he said, "for reminding me." As Ethan walked back to his car, the city felt different. The noise, the rush, the endless climb, it all seemed smaller now. He thought about the girl who had walked into his office, calm and unafraid, carrying a burden no child should have to carry. He thought about the mother who had raised her to be strong, to be kind, to ask for help when she needed it. And he thought about the man he used to be before the money, before the power, before the distance. That night, Ethan sat in his office alone, the skyline glowing beyond the window. He picked up his phone and scrolled through his contacts. There were hundreds of names, investors, partners, executives, people who wanted something from him, people who saw him as a means to an end. He thought about Claire and Emma, about the quiet dignity in their struggle, about the way Emma had looked at him with trust instead of expectation. And he made a decision. Over the next 6 months, things changed. Ethan started a foundation, small at first, focused on families like the Lawsons, single parents, working-class households one emergency away from collapse. He didn't announce it. He didn't hold a press conference. He just did the work. Claire got a better job, one with benefits and stability. Emma started a new school closer to home with a music program she loved. And every few weeks, Ethan would stop by not as a benefactor, but as a friend. He would sit at their kitchen table, drinking bad coffee, listening to Emma practice the piano. He would laugh at Claire's stories about her coworkers. He would feel, for the first time in years, like he was part of something real. One evening, as the sun set over the city, Emma played a song she had written herself. It was simple, a little clumsy, but full of heart. When she finished, she turned to Ethan and smiled. "Do you like it?" she asked. "I love it," he said, and he meant it. Because in that moment, he understood something he had forgotten long ago. Kindness wasn't about what you gave. It was about who you chose to see. It was about showing up when it mattered. It was about remembering that every person, no matter how small, carried a story worth listening to. And sometimes, all it took was one brave little girl to remind a man who he used to be, and who he could still become.